My mother manipulated my fiancé into cheating with my brother. I exposed their lies, and now they're paying the price. My name is Stephen, 31, and I've been with my fiancé, Lynn, 28, for 2 years. We've been engaged for 6 months. My younger brother, Wesley, 29, lives around 15 minutes from us. Our mother, Nancy, 55, has always been intense, but she has recently been acting strangely with Lynn. It began with Mom making odd comments about Wesley's gym success, or how some women simply need a more physically present male. I work 50 to 60 hours per week to provide for our future, and Wesley works as a personal trainer. Nothing wrong with it, but Mom treats him like he's a Greek god. Last month, I noticed Lynn acting differently during family dinners, more silent and checking her phone more frequently. I dismissed it as wedding planning stress. Things went horribly wrong yesterday. Mom invited Lynn over to discuss wedding plans while I was supposed to be at work. My crew finished early, so I decided to surprise them. I drove up to Mom's house and pushed open the window. I overheard everything. Mom was in full manipulation mode. Lynn, honey, I'm telling you this because I care. Steven's just like his father, always working, never home. Wesley could give you the attention you deserve. He's asked about you, you know. He says he sees how lonely you are. Lynn's response made my blood turn cold. Nancy, I don't know. Steven's been distant lately. Mom intervened. He's the stronger man. You need a real husband, someone who will be there, not just provide a paycheck. Wesley could give you that passionate life you deserve. I stood frozen. Lynn then stated something that shocked me. Wesley has been texting me. Nothing inappropriate. That was when I walked in. The expressions on their faces. Mom had the guts to smile, as if she were doing me a favor. Lynn became white like a sheet. I did not yell. I did not need to. I simply looked at Mom and said, "So this is what wedding planning looks like?" Mom straightened up, feeling righteous. Someone had to say something. "You're never home, always at work." Wesley, I cut her off. Wesley this, Wesley that. Really funny how you never mentioned the 3 failed relationships he's had this year alone. Lynn attempted to explain. "Stephen, it's not what you think. Let me see your phone," I requested. There is no more sound. If nothing is inappropriate, show me the texts. She gripped her phone closer. Mom started screaming about how I'm being controlling, how I don't trust Lynn, and how Wesley would never demand to see someone's phone. Rich, coming from the lady who reads her father's emails, just to make sure. I walked out. Lynn followed me to the driveway, crying about how confused she was, and how her mother had gotten into her head. She vowed to delete Wesley's phone number as if it mattered nothing. I got home to find 6 missed calls from Wesley. He texted me. "We need to talk, bro." "We sure do. Mom has been blowing up my phone all day. Obviously being paranoid is costing me a nice woman." Dad also called, attempting to maintain the status quo as usual. "You know how your mother gets, son? She means well." Means well? She is actively attempting to set up my brother with my fiancé, and Lynn is sleeping in the guest room, claiming she wants space to ponder. Funny how that works. What is the worst part? My friend Patrick informed me that Wesley had been turning up at the coffee shop near Lynn's employment for weeks, coincidentally during her lunch hour. Very subtle, bro. I'm not playing their games. I'm not going to sit around waiting for any more innocent texts or coffee shop coincidences. I just received a missed call from Mom, which was most likely another lecture about how Wesley always made time for family or something. I'm going to sleep on the couch tonight. Tomorrow's going to be fascinating. Edit. Holy cow. This blew out? Thank you for your support. To answer some typical questions, yes. We are in couples counseling. No. I didn't know about the texts until yesterday. Wesley is still blowing up my phone. I left him on red. Some of you considered this a hoax, because no mother would do this. You're lucky to have normal parents. Lynn texted me that she'll be staying at her sister's apartment until things quiet down. Yes, it will help. Mom has already called twice this morning. Have not responded. I'll provide an update once I've determined my next course of action. Right now, I need a drink and some sleep. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who supported my last post. I wish I had better news, but everything happened precisely as some of you expected. Sorry for the lengthy post, but I needed to get everything off my chest. Quick recap. I'm 31, and I noticed my mother, Nancy, 55, acting strangely around my fiancé, Lynn, 28, and making jokes about my brother, Wesley, 29, being more of a man than me. You warned me, and I should have listened sooner. The last 3 weeks have been horrible. Lynn began going out more, claiming girls' evenings every Thursday and occasionally Saturdays. I didn't think much of it until I realized she came home smelling like Wesley's terrible fragrance. You know the type. The one that every wannabe Instagram fitness dude uses. Last Thursday, she stated that she was going to see her friend Amber for cocktails. Something felt odd. She was dressed differently than usual, and had been texting all day with a strange smile. I decided to drive past Wesley's apartment complex, on my way to meet Patrick, for our weekly Thursday gaming session. Call it intuition or anything, but her car was right there in the visiting area. I waited in my truck for about 20 minutes, feeling my blood pressure rising with every minute. Then I noticed them through his ground floor window. They sat on his couch, her head on his shoulder, watching something on his laptop. My own brother and my fiancé, looking as comfortable as can be. I am not proud of what happened next, but I am also not regretful. I marched straight up and knocked on his door. A look on their faces as they opened it. Wesley in his dumb compression shirt. Lynn, in the things I got her for her birthday. I'll never forget this. How long? Is all I asked. Lynn began crying, but not the guilty type, but the I got caught kind. Wesley attempted to walk between us, inflating his chest like he often does. "Bro, we need to talk about this like adults." I cut him off. "How long? 2 months?" Lynn muttered. "It just happened. You're always working late. And Wesley understands me better." I laughed. Actually, I laughed. Understand you better? The guy who still lives in a rented studio apartment at 29? The one who sells overpriced protein powder to college kids? That's when everything started to go wrong. Wesley tried to throw a punch. He was always a hothead. I grabbed his arm and shoved him back into his flat. Really, you my fiance, and then try to hit me? Real classy, bro. I called our mother right there on speakerphone. Do you want to know what she said? She genuinely chuckled and said, well, honey, I tried to tell you. Wesley's always been the stronger one. Lynn needs a real man, not someone who's going to bore her to death. Within a few hours, the family group chat had exploded. Wesley played the victim, alleging I threatened him. I did not. Lynn used the butterfly emoji to accompany a hazy Instagram tale about following your heart. My mother began calling everyone, weaving her version of events, in which I was the evil person who drove Lynn away, due to my workaholic tendencies. Dad is staying out of it, which is typical. My sister texted that she is appalled with all of them. The extended family is divided. Half believes I should man up and fight for my relationship with my unfaithful fiancé, while the other half has some sense. Lynn moved out yesterday while I was at work. She took everything I ever gave her, as well as other things she didn't own. She left her ring on the kitchen counter with a remark, I never meant to hurt you. Classic. The kicker? Mom organized a family supper tonight. Guess who arrived together? Yes, Wesley and Lynn are holding hands like teenagers. Mom looked so proud. You'd think she had planned a royal wedding. I didn't go, of course. I sat at home, looking for all the indications I'd missed the unexpected gym sessions, the new clothes, the way she'd turn her phone away. When texting Wesley, showing up at family occasions, he typically avoided. And Mom's frequent comparisons. Here's the thing. I'm not sad. I am not even angry anymore. I'm just finished. I'm over Wesley's phony alpha guy act. I'm done with Lynn's victim routine. I'm done with Mom's manipulation. They think I'll just take it and show up at Christmas as if nothing happened. They have no idea what is coming. TLDR. I caught my fiancé with my brother. Mother practically arranged the whole thing. They're now playing the happy couple while portraying me as the bad guy. But I'm not taking it lying down. Edit. Many thanks for the prizes and messages. To everyone who has asked, yes, I've already spoken with a lawyer about what Lynn took. And no, I am not going to try to work it out as some of you advised. Some bridges need to be burned. Edit 2. Stop DMing me and asking for Wesley's Instagram. I understand you want to disgrace him, but I'm doing it my way. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since my previous update. And holy, everything just went horribly wrong. Remember how Wesley and my mother used to gloat about how I'd ultimately come around and accept things as they are? Yeah, karma is a bitch, and I'm her favorite wingman right now. First and foremost, thank you for all of your supportive direct messages. You guys kept me focused when I wanted to drink myself stupid. Special thanks to the person who advised that I look into Wesley's business methods. You were onto something there. So remember how Wesley was constantly bragging about his personal training business? It turns out Mr. Perfect was not exactly following the rules. All those protein supplements he sold to his customers, he was getting them from a shady supplier and repackaging them in his garage. I may have provided an anonymous tip to the fitness certification board regarding his unlicensed practice. Whoops. What is the best part? He was conducting his business using Venmo and Cash App without reporting anything. That type of information tends to pique the curiosity of tax officials. I didn't even have to do anything illegal. I simply forwarded some of his social media postings where he was literally bragging about his cash-only dealings to the appropriate individuals. My mother, Nancy, was not pleased when Wesley's certification was suspended. She came to my flat last Tuesday, yelling about how I was killing the family. I just stood there sipping my coffee as she was having a meltdown in the hallway. My neighbor even filmed it. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. TikTok truly took off. You're just jealous because Wesley's a real man, she yelled. I just chuckled and added, real men pay their taxes, Mom. The expression on her face was amazing. But this is where things get better. Remember how my mother was always the top real estate agent in our area? It turns out she's been cutting corners too. Nothing huge, but enough that when someone, certainly not me, began investigating her business operations, things became intriguing. What about those fantastic reviews she was always bragging about? Half of them vanished after being identified as suspicious. Lynn is beginning to detect flaws in her beautiful new man. Wesley had to cancel their weekend excursion since he could no longer afford it. She tried to contact me through Patrick last week, stating she misses our conversations. Yes, right. Patrick told her that I was too preoccupied with my new promotion to care about her drama. Oh, did I mention I was promoted? It turns out that channeling your anger into work, rather than drinking, produces positive results. The rise is good, but the timing is even better. Wesley is having to move back in with our parents because he can no longer afford his apartment. The family is now separated. Half of them are not speaking to me, which is good because I didn't like those cousins in the first place. The other half continues to send me funny emojis whenever Wesley or Mom write cryptic Facebook statements about being strong in the face of critics. Everything came to a climax last night at a family meeting intended to sort things out. Mom and Wesley ambushed me at Dad's home. They attempted to guilt-trip me about family loyalty, while Lynn sat there looking uncomfortable. I quickly brought out my phone and showed the video of Mom telling Lynn that Wesley was more manly than me. Dad had not seen that one before. His face changed from crimson to purple quite quickly. He requested Mom to go. This is the first time I've ever seen him stand up to her. Wesley tried to get in my face, saying I was sad for not fighting fairly. I simply smiled and asked him how his protein shake company was going. He swung at me, missed, and his face hit Dad's coffee table. He now has a shattered nose that matches his wounded ego. Lynn began crying, stating that this was not what she wanted. I simply shrugged and replied, you made your bed. I hope it was worthwhile. I then went out, leaving Wesley bleeding on Dad's carpet. This morning my phone was flooded with alerts. Wesley's certification board made their final verdict online, and he will be barred from personal training for at least 2 years. Mom's real estate broker fired her after additional complaints surfaced. And Lynn, she is informing everybody who will listen that she made a mistake. What is the best way to exact revenge? I am truly happier today. I got my own place, my job is doing well, and I've met someone new who values loyalty. Life is funny like that. TLDR. Brother and ex-fiancé believed they had won via cheating. Mom backed them. I played the long game, legally revealed their nefarious methods, and now they're all paying the price while my life is better than ever. Edit. Holy cow. This blew out. Rip. Inbox. No, I will not post the TikTok video. I'm trying to maintain some privacy here. Edit 2. Stop asking for Lynn's social media. It's not cool, guys. Edit 3. Yes, Wesley attempted to swing at me. No, I did not press charges. His shattered nose and ruined reputation were enough. Finally, an update. Thank you to everyone for your support. It's been 2 months since my last update, and things have really escalated. Grab your popcorn, for Karma has finally arrived. And she's a stone-cold, told Dartier. Wesley's life crashed. Lynn crawled back. Lel no. And my mother's idyllic little world disintegrated. Sometimes vengeance is simply watching others kill themselves. At 6 a.m., the phone started vibrating last Thursday. I ignored Wesley's first several calls, but by the time I got out of the shower, I had 19 missed calls from him, Lynn, and my mother. Didn't bother phoning back. I just prepared coffee and watched the show on Facebook. Remember how I described Wesley's supplement business in my previous post? It turns out the protein shakes he was selling were not quite legal. Someone, not me, anonymously informed the health department about his unlicensed company. They conducted a surprise check and discovered his garage filled with outdated supplements that he was repackaging as premium protein blends. What is the best part? He had been peddling this trash at his gym. When word spread, his clients began commenting about feeling sick. The gym promptly dismissed him. His personal training certificate. Gone. My mother used to brag about her affluent clients. It's all gone. But wait, things get better. Remember the electrical work Wesley did at Mom's office? The one she kept telling me to admire because your brother is so handy? It's interesting how the building inspector showed up after receiving images of unlawful electrical work. My mother's real estate office had to close for 2 weeks for emergency repairs. It cost her a fortune, and she failed to close 3 sales. I did not do anything wrong. I simply ensured that the appropriate individuals received the correct information at the right time. Lynn began to reconsider her upgrade when Wesley found himself unable to pay their flat any longer. She genuinely showed up at my house last week, weeping about how she had made a mistake. I told her I was busy. I was actually preparing for a date with Zoe, the new receptionist at my gym. Yes, Wesley's former gym. Petty, maybe, worth it. Absolutely. The real satisfaction came during Sunday's family meal. Mom insisted on these wee meetings, using them to highlight her successful offspring. This time, I did turn up. First time since the separation. I brought Zoe. Mom almost choked when she saw us. Wesley and Lynn were also present, both of whom appeared unhappy. Wesley is wearing his old high school clothes, since he cannot afford new ones. Lynn was trying to capture my attention, but I was too busy telling everyone about my promotion, supervisor position, company truck, the full thing. Mom tried to divert the subject, but Dad, who has finally grown a spine, kept inquiring about my job. Then Wesley lost it. He began yelling about how I had wrecked his life. Mom leaped in to defend her precious baby boy. I just sat there eating potatoes, while Wesley had a meltdown. He even accused me of reporting him to everyone. Of course, we couldn't prove anything. I simply smiled and inquired whether he had tried the new protein shakes at the gym. I heard they were legit. Lynn attempted to play mediator, which was amusing. Stephen, can't we all just get past this? Lynn, what are you moving past? Your decision to become a stronger man who now cannot afford Dollar General protein powder? Mom's real estate business is suffering. It turns out that when you lose your office for 2 weeks and are charged with health code breaches, people begin searching elsewhere. The gossip group she adored, they're having a field day with her handyman's son and the expired supplement scandal. What about the cherry on top? Dad eventually spoke up. He told Mom he was weary of her playing favorites. He has been sleeping in the guest room and talks about taking some time to reflect. I did not have to throw a single punch or break any laws. I simply sat back and watched Karma do her thing. Wesley's strength proved ineffective when his house of cards crumbled. Mom's beloved golden child is now the neighborhood joke. And Lynn, last I heard, is looking for teaching jobs in another district when parents at her school learned about the controversy. Me? Life is good? Zoe is great. She respects a man who works hard rather than just bragging about his protein shakes. The promotion came with a good raise. And best of all, I slept like a baby, knowing that all I had to do was wait for their own deeds to catch up with them. Mom still calls occasionally, typically wailing about how I have pulled the family apart. I simply let it go to voicemail. Wesley attempted to connect on LinkedIn last week, denied. Lynn sent a lengthy email discussing closure. Unread messages were deleted. They desired a stronger man. They did get one, but it wasn't what they expected. Edit. Because people keep asking. Yes, all of the reports and tips were entirely real. They were actually selling expired vitamins. The electrical work was clearly not up to code. I just made sure everyone noticed. Mill demanded half my salary and accused me of trapping her son when I announced my pregnancy. Am I the asshole for calling off the wedding and leaving? Gary, 30 million, and I, 28 feet, were set to get married next week. But after an odd talk with his mother, Linda, 55 feet, everything changed. I need help regarding my current circumstances because I feel totally lost. 2 years ago, Gary and I met at a birthday celebration through mutual acquaintances. Despite the fact that I was gregarious and extroverted, and he was shy and introverted, we clicked right away. In contrast to my commercial profession, Gary was a kind high school teacher who cherished his kids. I like Gary's shyness and his tendency to keep to himself, even though we met at a party. He was just being himself, in contrast to other guys who made an effort to impress me. After 6 months of dating, our relationship took a serious turn. After spending a lot of time together, we began discussing moving in together. At that point, Linda, Gary's mother, proposed that we move in with them in order to save money for the future. Gary, who had always lived with his parents and didn't see anything wrong with it, was totally on board. Although I appreciated my independence, I was apprehensive, but the financial consideration made sense. Linda claimed that it would be more cost-effective for us to live in the large 5-bedroom home she and her husband Tom occupied. I moved in, reluctantly giving up my flat. Linda first came across as quite kind. She included me in family activities and prepared our favorite dishes every time. She was a mother who stayed at home and took delight in caring for her family. Tom, her spouse, was a construction worker, although he was seldom present and hardly talked. Linda was in charge of the home and made all the choices. In fact, the first few months of living there were enjoyable. Linda handled all of the cooking, cleaning, and laundry. I worked hard at my job and needed to relax when I got home, so she wouldn't even let me help. Gary and I made a small contribution toward groceries and utilities, but it was insignificant in comparison to what I had previously spent. Gary and I became closer after we moved in together, and we began discussing getting married. Gary used his grandmother's ring to pop the question on my birthday last year. Linda took up the wedding arrangements right away, seemingly ecstatic about the engagement. She seemed so happy that I agreed with all of her many suggestions. Everything appeared to be going according to plan until last Thursday, when we decided to have the wedding the next week. Linda wanted to talk about something significant regarding the wedding, so she asked to have coffee with me alone. I thought it had to do with last-minute plans or a custom in the family. During my lunch hour, we met at a cafe close to my workplace. Following a brief conversation about wedding planning, she abruptly made an odd request. She informed me that I would have to deposit half of my monthly income into her account after we were married. I was totally taken aback and perplexed. She explained that it was for Gary's and my financial stability when I questioned why. I've already talked to Gary about it, and he agreed, she said. What I was hearing was unbelievable. She decided to bring this up a week before the wedding, even though I had been living with them for over a year and had been organizing it for months. After telling her that I needed some time to consider it, I walked out of the cafe. I had so many questions running through my head. Why hadn't Gary brought this up earlier? Given that we were already helping with household expenses, why would she want my money? I questioned Gary about it when I got home that night. After becoming somewhat anxious, he eventually acknowledged that his mother had discussed this with him a month prior. She had warned him that we would not be allowed to reside in her home after marriage if we didn't accept her conditions. Gary explained that he kept it from me because he was afraid we would have to move out, and we weren't yet able to afford our own house after all the wedding-related costs. The fact that Gary withheld this information from me for a month upset me. We had always told one another the truth about everything. We would speak things out even if we didn't agree. This seemed like a total breach of confidence. Gary said that his mother only had our best interests in mind, but I failed to see how withdrawing half of my pay was beneficial to us. I've been feeling anxious about the whole affair because Gary and I are the only ones who know that I'm 2 months pregnant. We were glad of it, even if it wasn't planned. After the baby was born, we had agreed that I would temporarily leave my job to care for our child. Gary had been in favor of this choice, and we had begun budgeting appropriately. He obviously hadn't discussed any of this with his mother, though. I haven't yet informed my parents about Linda's request because they reside in another state. I don't want to worry them because they had spent a lot of money on this wedding. My best buddy suggests that I speak with Linda once more in an effort to better comprehend her viewpoint, but I must admit that I'm afraid to confront her by myself. 7 days remain till the wedding, and I'm at a loss. Gary continues telling me that I should just accept Linda's terms for the time being, and that I'm overreacting. I think this is only the beginning, but he says we can work anything out later. What else will she demand if she is making these demands prior to marriage? And I start to doubt everything because Gary kept this from me for a month. I need guidance. Am I reacting too strongly to this circumstance? Since we need a place to live, should I just accept her requirements, or should I refuse to back down and run the danger of destroying our relationship? First update. I made the decision to speak with Linda once again and inform her about the pregnancy after reading all of your comments. Some indicated that she might change her mind about the entire pay issue if she knew about her impending grandchild. In retrospect, I see how foolish I was to believe that, because I didn't feel comfortable talking to Linda by myself again. I wanted Gary to be there. He excused himself by saying he had extra lessons at school and had to stay back when I told him this morning that I was going to notify Linda about the pregnancy. Since it's spring break, I thought it was strange, but I didn't press the issue. After Linda finished preparing dinner yesterday evening, I ended up meeting her by myself in her kitchen. As usual, Tom was in the living room watching TV, totally unaware of anything going on in the home. Despite my nervousness, I made the decision to end it now. I began by informing her that I had some significant news to share with her. I was expecting her granddaughter, who was 2 months along. I thought she would at least show a little excitement or joy, but she had the exact opposite reaction. She yelled so loudly that I'm sure the neighbors could hear her as her cheeks flushed with rage. She accused me of deceiving her son with this pregnancy and called me manipulative. She claimed that I had orchestrated the entire incident to damage their family's reputation. I was taken aback because Gary and I had lived in their home for 2 years together and were being married in less than a week. Was anyone being trapped by this pregnancy? She went utterly crazy when I told her that I was going to quit my job when the kid was delivered. She began to pace the kitchen and said that since they required my pay for household necessities, she would not allow me to resign. She dropped a bombshell when I reminded her that I had never committed to pay her my wage in the first place. She informed me that months prior to his proposal, Gary had already promised her my pay. I had the impression that I had been punched in the stomach. Gary had been cooperating with her intentions all along and was aware of them. But Linda wasn't finished. She continued to talk about how my unintended pregnancy had ruined everything. She claimed that she was only permitting our marriage because I made a nice living and that she saw no need in the wedding, now that I intended to resign from my position. I immediately called Gary, but he didn't answer. Despite my repeated attempts to call, the call went directly to voicemail. When he eventually got home at around 9 p.m., I waited for him to do so, and Linda filled him in on everything. I thought he would defend me and our child, but he chose to support his mother. He suggested that I should have used birth control more carefully, and that my desire to resign from my work was causing needless turmoil. It was unbelievable to me that this was the same Gary who, only a few days prior, had been thrilled about the baby. who had even begun researching baby names online and had helped me cope with morning sickness. He seemed to be a totally different person when his mother was there. Gary slept on the couch as I sobbed in our room all night. He never once came to see how I was doing, even at that point. When I tried to speak with him again this morning, before he left for school, he suggested that I either accept his mother's demands or put off the wedding until we could work things out. He didn't even admit that his mother had treated me rudely or that because of our child, she had essentially threatened to call off our wedding. As I give it more thought, I see that Gary has never really challenged his mother on any issue. He advised me to dress more modestly when she made comments about my attire. He said she was merely attempting to assist when she rearranged our room without asking. He suggested I should be thankful she was doing all the work when she altered our wedding arrangements without telling me. He constantly told me to change or offered justifications for her actions. I contacted my mother and told her everything since I was at my breaking point. She was so angry that she promised to get me a plane home right away. I pleaded with her not to exacerbate the situation by coming here herself to confront Linda. To help me decompress, she invited me to come stay with her for a few days and pack some clothing. This is being typed from my mother's home. Gary claims that I'm being dramatic and hormonal due to the pregnancy, and he has been phoning and messaging me nonstop. He argues that by departing in this manner, I'm embarrassing him, and that I should return home to make amends with his mother for causing her distress. My mother believes that I should give this marriage a lot more thought. She claims that if Linda is making such demands prior to marriage and Gary is unable to resist her at this time, things will only worsen once they are married. She is concerned about how they will handle the baby and me. I'm not sure if the wedding should take place at all, and it's in 5 days. I can't help but think of how fast Gary changed when he had to decide between me and his mother. When she starts making more demands after marriage, what will happen? Will my child witness their father consistently picking their grandmother above their mother as they grow up? Second update. I canceled the wedding. I eventually found the strength to make this tough choice after spending 2 days at my mom's house contemplating everything. Gary unexpectedly came up at my mom's place the night after I posted my last update. My mother had gone to fetch groceries, so she wasn't home. At first, I believed he had come to express regret or, at the least, to try to comprehend my perspective. Rather, he began scolding me about how staying at my mom's house was embarrassing him and his family. He claimed that family members had begun to phone and inquire as to why I wasn't home, and he wasn't sure how to respond. His demeanor only exacerbated the morning nausea I was already experiencing. I informed him up front that unless he defied his mother and agreed with my choice about the child, I would not marry him. I saw his true colors in his remark. We needed a place to live, so he suggested that if I truly cared about our child, I would continue working and give his mother what she desired. He said he wasn't going to leave his parents' house because I was being difficult when I proposed that we rent a tiny apartment instead. I realized then that Gary would never change. He would be his mother's puppet forever. I returned my engagement ring to him after taking it off. He became irate and accused me of selfishness and self-centeredness. I understood the irony of what he was saying. I questioned him about how he could allow his mother to treat his child's mother in such a disrespectful manner. He insisted that I was overreacting even though he had no response. I began phoning all of our guests to cancel things the following morning, my hands shaking. 3 days before the wedding was scheduled, it was embarrassing to have to tell everyone why it was canceled. While some were judgmental, others were understanding. My parents helped me deal with all the vendors and cancellations, and were really encouraging. The actual drama began at that point. Linda, the head of Gary's family, began circulating rumors among our acquaintances. I called off the wedding because they told everyone I had cheated on Gary. They claimed that I was deceiving Gary about the pregnancy. In fact, some common acquaintances who had known us for years took them at face value and ceased communicating with me. I started getting angry messages from Linda. She claimed that I had destroyed her son's life and that she would see to it that I felt bad about my choice. She started making up new social media profiles to torment me, and I blocked her number when she threatened to report my unstable behavior to my employer. In the end, I blocked their whole family. Gary kept attempting to reach me at several numbers. Occasionally, when he was upset, he would accuse me of being selfish. At other times, he would beg, stating we could resolve the issue, but he never confronted his mother or expressed regret for keeping things from me. While Gary and Linda were at a family gathering, my mother assisted me in moving all of my belongings out of their home. Tom was present, but he did nothing but observe in silence while we packed everything. However, his assistance in carrying several boxes to the car was perhaps the most involvement he had ever showed in a family matter. I feel like I can breathe for the first time in weeks, now that I'm back at my mom's house. Although some people are criticizing me for being unmarried and pregnant, I would much rather be a single mother than be forced to live in a marriage where my husband and his mother run my entire life. Surprisingly, my employer has been sympathetic to my plight. After I told my manager about it, she made arrangements for me to work from home because I've been experiencing severe morning sickness. At least I haven't yet had to deal with my coworkers' inquiries. I squandered 2 years with someone who couldn't decide between his mother and his unborn child, and that's the only thing that hurts. Even though it was a tough choice, I know it was the right one. My child deserves better than a grandmother who treats them like a bother and a father who is incapable of advocating for them. Third update. Since my last update, everything in my life has changed drastically. Last month, I gave birth to Emma, my gorgeous baby girl. Both physically and emotionally, the pregnancy was challenging. During the last trimester, I experienced high blood pressure and terrible morning sickness. My mother was incredible. In order to support me during the last few months of my pregnancy and the initial weeks following delivery, she took a 3-month leave of absence from her employment. Through some mutual connections, Gary learned of Emma's birth. The day after I gave birth, he and Linda arrived at the hospital. Only my family was permitted to visit, as I had made clear on my admissions paperwork. Linda made quite a commotion in the hospital lobby when the nurses intervened. She was yelling about my deprivation of her son's child and her rights as a grandma. They had to be escorted out by hospital security. After this episode, my doctor was worried about my blood pressure and kept me under monitoring for an additional day. Gary's attorney called me regarding custody arrangements a week after we returned home from the hospital. Linda had been writing on Facebook about filing a lawsuit, so I wasn't shocked. We're now working out the custody details, and I have my own lawyer. According to my lawyer, Gary's petition for 50-50 custody is improbable because he never offered any support during my pregnancy. I benefit from the fact that we have records of Linda's hospital harassment and all of her threatening texts. 2 months ago, something unexpected happened. Gary's calm father, Tom, paid me a secret visit. He claimed to have wanted to speak with me for months, yet he appeared anxious. He told me something startling and expressed regret for not speaking up sooner. 5 years prior, Linda had done similar things to Gary's ex-girlfriend, Sarah. Although Sarah left Gary before to the engagement, she had insisted on receiving a portion of her inheritance. Tom claimed that although Linda had threatened to divorce him if he meddled in family affairs, he had wished to warn me. Last week, I started a new job with a 30% pay increase. It's actually a better job than the one I had before. Emma's management is greatly aided by the company's excellent maternity benefits and flexible scheduling. While I'm at work, my mom has been fantastic with the baby. It offers her something to look forward to each day, she claims. Linda hasn't given up yet. She makes fictitious social media profiles in order to reach me and make offensive remarks about me. She even made an attempt to get in touch with my new employer, but fortunately, my manager was sympathetic to the circumstance. After hearing Tom's side of the story, a few of our mutual acquaintances who had first accepted their lies apologized, but I'm avoiding contact with anyone associated with that family. I return every gift that Gary sends Emma. He sent us a giant teddy bear last week, along with a statement expressing how much he missed us. I sent it with a message requesting that he only speak with our attorneys. I refuse to allow him or his mother to use presents and kind words to re-enter our life. Emma deserves better than a father who was unable to defend her before she was even born, and a grandmother who views her as a problem. Unless there is a significant development in the custody case, I doubt I will be updating again. In retrospect, I'm so happy I followed my gut and called off the wedding. Sometimes breaking up with someone right before marriage is preferable to being in a dominating marriage where you lose your independence and dignity. Emma is currently waking up from her slumber. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for clearing my confusion 6 months ago. Even when life isn't perfect, what matters most is that we're happy. Golden Child's sister canceled my flight, took a family vacation without me, but her manipulations finally caught up to her. I, 28-4, am employed as a paralegal at one of the leading legal practices in San Francisco that focuses on civil litigation and family law. I find it ironic that as I cope with my own family drama, I spend my days painstakingly recording evidence for family disagreements. I assist lawyers in constructing cases against manipulative family members who take advantage of and misuse their relatives' trust on a daily basis. I've gotten really excellent at identifying manipulation patterns and obtaining proof, which will soon prove to be more useful to me personally than I could have ever imagined. Let me tell you a little about myself. My parents have always regarded Olivia, my younger sister, who is 23, as their miracle kit. Before Olivia was born, my mom had suffered 3 terrible miscarriages, and the agony of those losses almost caused their marriage to fail. For them, Olivia became a symbol of rebirth and optimism when she eventually appeared. Every time she walked into the room, my dad, 56 M's, a typically quiet high school teacher, would light up. My 54-year-old mother, who owns a small bakery, referred to her as their angel on earth. At first, I understood. Overprotection can result from trauma, I was 5 years old when Olivia was born, and I had seen my parents go through a difficult time. I could see why they showered her with attention. My parents didn't see, or didn't want to see, how Olivia turned their adoration into a weapon. Even the most seasoned attorneys I deal with would be impressed by her remarkable ability to manipulate emotions. As a child, Olivia demonstrated a superb ability to turn any circumstance to her favor. She knew exactly how to manipulate our parents like a fiddle, and her victim act was worthy of an Oscar. She began manipulating me in minor ways, accusing me of pushing her when she fell, which I never did, blaming me for broken toys, and making herself weep whenever I received attention. However, her strategies grew increasingly cunning and vicious as we grew older. One instance that truly reveals her actual nature comes to mind. Our grandma gave me this vintage pocket watch, which has been in the family for many generations. On my 16th birthday, our great-grandfather, who moved from Ireland, owned the exquisitely built watch from the 1890s, which had withstood 2 world wars. For me, the story behind it was everything. Despite receiving a brand new iPhone as a special gift, Olivia pitched a fit because she wanted it to. Remember, this was back when iPhones were still popular. She chose to discipline me when I refused to share it, because, after all, it was a birthday present. She sneaked into my room later that night and placed a giant house spider in my pillowcase, since she knew I was afraid of spiders because of an event at summer camp when I was a kid. Olivia was the ideal choice to play the worried sister when I woke up screaming and had something crawling on my face. She even succeeded in giving my parents the impression that she had come to my aid right away. Only later, when we were by ourselves, did she confess what she had done, flashing that smug look I had been so accustomed to. A week later, the watch vanished inexplicably. I knew Olivia had taken it, even though we never discovered evidence. She went on the defensive when I accused her, saying that I was jealous of her new iPhone and was only attempting to harm her. The watch never appeared, and I was grounded for a week by my parents for making false accusations. Then there came my junior year, when I had my first serious crush on a man named Jason. We had been studying together for months when he was in my AP chemistry class. I finally had the bravery to ask him to a movie. I spent hours choosing the ideal ensemble, which included a brand new blue dress that I had been saving for months at my part-time job at the neighborhood library. Olivia accidentally spilled her grape juice all over it as soon as Jason entered. She amused him with uncomfortable tales from my early years, such as a particularly embarrassing instance from a school performance in which I had stage fright and became wet myself while I was upstairs getting changed. I was 6 years old. The entire atmosphere was destroyed by the time I returned downstairs in my backup attire. Olivia had somehow made herself the focus of attention, and Jason could hardly look at me. Jason changed his study partner the following day, and I never heard from him again. She ruined more than just my social life, though. Just hours before the due date, Olivia accidentally erased my almost completed Common Application essay from our shared family computer when I was applying to colleges in my senior year. The hurried version likely cost me admission to a number of prestigious universities, and I had to spend the entire night revising it. Maybe you should have saved a backup copy. Isn't that what smart people do? She simply shrugged when I challenged her. This trend persisted during our adolescence. My mom would always add, "You know how sensitive she is after everything we went through to have her." No matter how I tried to explain Olivia's behavior to our parents, they would dismiss it with a remark like, "She's just young," or "You need to be more understanding of your sister." I eventually gave up trying. What was the purpose? I was merely the one who caused trouble by speaking up, and Olivia was their best child. Despite being an English teacher who takes great satisfaction in his ability to analyze critically, my dad lost his sight of Olivia. All day long, he would point out deceit and manipulation in Shakespeare's characters to his students, but he was unable to recognize the same trends occurring in his own household. Even worse was my mother. Being Olivia's mother had essentially become her entire identity, as though Olivia's most recent accomplishments, the majority of which, I subsequently learned, she had lied about or stolen credit for from others, were more significant than her own prosperous bakery business. I was eager to get out of that house by the age of 18. I concentrated on my studies, was accepted to a reputable college across the nation, and left right away. In order to avoid having to approach my parents for money, I worked 2 jobs as a research assistant and at the college library. I understood that any financial dependence would offer Olivia grounds to criticize me. It was refreshing to go to college. For the first time, I could be myself without Olivia constantly putting me down. However, she made it plain that I wasn't welcome whenever I returned home during breaks, which got fewer and farther between. She would ignore me during meals, snoop through my belongings while I wasn't looking, and cut me off in any conversation I attempted to have with our parents. She even once accessed private customer files on my work laptop, which may have led to my termination if someone had discovered it. How did she react when I challenged her? Our parents, as usual, just shrugged and said, "You shouldn't have left it lying around." They also advised us to get along. After that, I started staying in school or spending my breaks with friends instead of going home. After dedicating myself to my studies, I finished with honors and immediately enrolled in law school. Even my law school graduation was skipped because Olivia had a slight cold and needed them. My parents seemed to be okay with my absence, justifying it as me becoming independent. I am currently 28 years old and have established a profession as a paralegal at one of the leading law companies in San Francisco. The irony that I spend my days recording the betrayals of other people's families while attempting to forget my own is not lost on me. I specialize in family court matters. Over the past 5 years, I haven't really interacted with Olivia much, only having polite, quick conversations around significant holidays. When I bothered to show up at all, with sporadic phone conversations and generic birthday cards, my connection with my parents grew more and more strained. Then, when my dad suffered a near-fatal heart attack a few months ago, everything changed. I threw everything down and ran home when my mother called to tell me I was on the next trip home after she uttered my name with an urgency I had never heard before. "Madison, please come. He's asking for you." Her words broke through years of bitterness. Dad was stabilized and lift, but he was badly shaken by the event. As I observed him battling with the several tubes and monitors connected to him during one of our conversations in the hospital, he expressed his desire to spend more time with his loved ones. He said, "Life's too short," in a voice that was weaker than I had ever heard. In addition to recommending lifestyle modifications like regular exercise, the doctors had prescribed a rigorous pharmaceutical schedule. My throat constricted as he spoke about second chances and regrets. I chose to stay for a few days because I could see his point of view. Perhaps since I hadn't taken a sick day in 5 years and had accumulated enough goodwill to last a lifetime, my employer was unexpectedly kind. I could work from home, conducting research and preparing documents from my former bedroom. But my return to the house did not sit well with Olivia. She demonstrated this by moving my laptop during client calls, playing loud music while I was attempting to work, and accidentally unplugging my monitor during crucial video conferences, among other tiny acts of violence. Then one morning at breakfast, Dad suggested that the family go on a trip, reminding me of the father I knew before Olivia seized control of our lives. He wanted to travel to Hawaii, which we had discussed going to when I was younger, before Olivia, before the miscarriages, before everything changed. At first, I was hesitant because hanging out with Olivia for a long period wasn't really exciting. Knowing how much it meant to Dad, though, I consented. During that brunch, I noticed hope in his eyes, something I hadn't seen in years. Although Olivia seemed more interested in eating nails than going on a trip with me, she was unable to refuse Dad's proposition while he was still recuperating from a heart attack. He booked flights and lodging, taking care of everything. I made sure everything was in order, asked for time off, and even prepared case papers ahead of time to make sure nothing would stop me from going. However, I learned that my flight had been inexplicably canceled when we arrived at the airport. I felt angry and perplexed. We went to the airline desk to find out what had happened, because Dad insisted he had purchased and paid for all 4 tickets. Only my ticket had been denied. I thought as I looked at Olivia, it was the same sneaky smile I'd seen so many times before. The one she'd worn after the spider incident, after she'd ruined my date with Jason, after she'd gained every little triumph over me. I went straight up to her. I said, "You did this, didn't you?" Mom leaped to Olivia's support. "Your sister would never do something like that." Dad then made an effort to make things better. "It's probably just an airline error. Let's not point fingers." As she mentioned that my ticket had been canceled yesterday from my parents' home IP address while I was at work, the airline lady appeared uneasy. I was taken aback. Since there were no other flights that day, it didn't seem like a good idea to fly alone the following day. They still refused to accept Olivia as she truly was, despite all the evidence that pointed to her. After hesitating and speculating that they might postpone and reschedule, Dad began to talk about how long it had been since he had taken a holiday, how the doctors had warned that stress was harmful for his heart, and that perhaps it would be best to keep quiet. Mom remarked, "You travel so much for work anyway," without looking at me. "You're not really missing out." Their remarks hurt. To once again prioritize Olivia's comfort over my involvement in the family, they appeared to be requesting permission to depart without me. "You're welcome to go without me," I remarked in a cold tone as I made my way back to San Francisco, determined to move on from the entire situation. I had no idea that Olivia's reputation as a golden child would ultimately bring about her demise. Something changed inside of me as I stood alone in the airport, watching my parents and Olivia board their aircraft. I learned the value of paperwork, case building, and waiting for the proper opportunity during my years of paralegal employment. For years, I had been surreptitiously gathering proof of Olivia's manipulation, including witness statements from former classmates and neighbors, emails, texts, and security camera footage. It was time to exploit my professional expertise for my own benefit. In that airport terminal, I decided to stop being the understanding elder sister. No more ignoring the situation. The culmination of years of gathering evidence of Olivia's deceptive actions was imminent, and she wouldn't even anticipate it. I knew better than anyone because I worked as a paralegal. The truth always comes out in the end, and I would be prepared when it did. First update. I never thought my mother would call me in such a frenzy so quickly. As I listened to her frantic voice describe what had transpired at their Hawaii resort, my hands began to shake. Their flawed family vacation had devolved into a nightmare that would ultimately reveal Olivia's true character. It started when Dad's heart medicine started to inexplicably stop working. After 3 days of closely monitoring his medication, my parents discovered that 3 to 4 pills per day were routinely disappearing. Initially, they thought he was misplacing his pills or taking them without remembering, which was a worrying but reasonable explanation considering his recent health problems. My father insisted on looking everywhere in their suite, but at first my mother didn't accept the obvious implications. Nothing was discovered until my mother was at the pool and went to borrow sunscreen from Olivia's room. All of Dad's missing heart pills were in Olivia's bedside drawer, as was his backup prescription bottle, which had reportedly been misplaced during packing. Olivia didn't even attempt to refute it when pressed. "You shouldn't have invited her in the first place," she yelled, alluding to their original plan to include me, because this trip was supposed to be about us, the real family. Instead, she launched into a diatribe about how I had ruined their perfect family vacation. Things quickly got out of hand. Olivia started flinging objects around the hotel room, breaking multiple glasses and a lamp. She reacted angrily to my father's attempts to soothe her, accusing him of being weak for attempting to reintroduce that drama into their lives and claiming that his heart attack was really a ploy to get attention. When hotel security received complaints about the noise, they weren't impressed by Olivia's performance, unlike when our parents were there. When she refused to stop and started saying that everyone would pay, the hotel staff phoned the police. As my mother explained how she was handcuffed and brought away, I could hear her yelling in the background. She kept saying it was all your fault. My mother wept on the phone. "But Madison, she could have killed your father. Those medications, he needs them." The doctor said even missing a single day could trigger another heart attack. I remained calm and professional. I had learned how to maintain my composure in the face of internal turmoil via years of handling high-stress legal circumstances. I gave the order, "Mom, I need you to do exactly what I say. Take photos of where you found the medication. Document everything. Use your phone to record any conversations with hotel staff or police. Don't delete anything Olivia sends you." The voice of my mother broke. "The police want to press charges. They're saying it's attempted domestic assault or something. Should we get her a lawyer?" "No," I firmly said. "Let me handle everything from here." This was the kind of thing I had been planning. Olivia was taken out of custody 24 hours later, but her freedom would not last long. In her room, the police had discovered more than just cardiac medication. They also found a number of stolen goods, such as cell phones and wallets, from other hotel visitors. While our parents were at the beach or pool, she had been methodically breaking into other rooms. Olivia wasn't finished, though. As soon as she got back to the hotel, she started planning her retaliation. She essentially left our parents stranded in Hawaii, without access to cash or identity, by hiding their wallets and passports. Her message was unmistakable. She would ensure that everyone suffered alongside her if she were going down. I started working with the hotel security personnel right once, and made arrangements for emergency monies, unexpectedly supportive. As it happens, Olivia was already under suspicion by the hotel for acting strangely around the rooms of other visitors. When she was seen trying to enter the hotel's medical storage facility, which had emergency cardiac drugs, on security tape, it was the last straw. She claimed she was only seeking for aspirin when staff confronted her, but the keypad's access log revealed several unsuccessful attempts to enter a restricted location. As I was coordinating with the hotel security staff and local law enforcement that evening, Olivia began sending me more bizarre texts. She said that during her prior snooping, she had obtained private information from my laptop and threatened to disclose it to my company. She was unaware that years prior, I had already reported and documented her unauthorized access attempt to the security team at my company. The truth was shattering my parents, who were finally recognizing Olivia for who she truly was. Dad's blood pressure was dangerously high due to the stress, and Mom was crying uncontrollably. While the court case started, I made arrangements for them to relocate to a separate hotel far from Olivia. During our most recent phone conversation, my father observed, "We ought to have paid attention to you years ago." I had never heard his voice sound older and more worn out. "We couldn't realize we were losing you instead because we were so terrified of losing her." Olivia is currently being investigated by the police. She faces severe charges based on my documenting of her prior actions, as well as the recently obtained hotel proof. Karma can occasionally operate through the legal system. Since my last report, things have drastically become worse. Olivia was released on bail after being charged with several counts of stealing and reckless endangerment, with the stipulation that she must return to our parents' home. and attend required mental health assessments. But what transpired next demonstrated that things were much worse than any of us had thought. Olivia transformed our parents' home into a psychological battleground without expressing any regret. She started by methodically deleting family pictures, but just those that featured me. Olivia said she was cleaning the house of negative energy when Mom questioned her about it. Then, in the middle of the night, she started moving all the furniture around, making loud noises that kept our parents from falling asleep. When she began to interfere with Dad's new medicine schedule, the true risk became evident. He would miss doses, or take them at the wrong times, because she would alter the time on every clock in the house. She pretended to be innocent when apprehended, saying she was only trying to help organize things better. Any change to his pharmaceutical regimen could result in another cardiac episode, the physicians had cautioned. While officially remaining within the law, Olivia came up with inventive methods to ruin our parents' lives, so I promptly filed for an emergency restraining order. At night, she would stand quietly in their bedroom doorway and watch them attempt to go asleep. Or she would play music that was precisely 1 decibel below the noise regulation limit. When Dad found out that the brake lines on his automobile had been tampered with, it was the tipping point. The mechanic verified that the damage was deliberate, but we were unable to identify Olivia. She accidentally ignited a minor fire in the kitchen at 3 a.m. that same day while cooking. My dad called me crying. "We can no longer live this way, Madison. My blood pressure is skyrocketing, and your mother hasn't slept in days. However, she is our daughter. How could we have let her down so severely?" I made arrangements for Olivia to be evaluated by a mental evaluation team using my legal connections. Instead of cooperating, she launched into a thorough conspiracy theory about how I had planned everything, including the hotel mishaps and Dad's heart attack, to turn our parents against her. The initial assessment from the evaluation team was unsettling. They observed a total lack of empathy and extreme narcissistic characteristics, pointing to a pattern of behavior that had probably been growing for years. Olivia would either deny everything or defend it as essential for protecting her family from my influence when I showed her the evidence of her behavior. The process has been a nightmare, but our parents have finally consented to formally evict her. She has been methodically wrecking the house by punching holes in the walls, ruining appliances, and shredding documents. She asserts that the house would never feel the same without her and says she is marking her territory. Things took a far darker turn last night. During one of her subsequent 3 a.m., eventually she wrote resignation letters to the principal of his school and gained access to Dad's email account, claiming to be helping them simplify their lives. She then went on to cancel all of their utility and credit card bills. The police are called in once more, but Olivia seemed to enjoy operating just outside the law. It is difficult to make a case for her quick removal, since she is aware of the limits of her influence before going beyond established legal bounds. I've been painstakingly recording everything in an effort to compile a case that should lead to both required mental health treatment and criminal prosecution. My years of experience as a paralegal are coming in very handy. Every event, text message, and item of property damage is being recorded and validated. Since they are unable to go back to their own house, our parents are currently lodging at a motel. Mom's voice was hollow when she called me yesterday. We never realized we needed to protect the world from her because we spent so many years protecting her from the world. Next week is the date of the eviction hearing in court. Although Olivia is unaware of it yet, I have gathered proof of financial fraud she has perpetrated over the previous few years using our parents' information. I've been planning for years because sometimes the best defense is a well-prepared offense. Third update. Nobody could have predicted how dramatically the final meeting with Olivia would unfold. She went from using psychological warfare to open criminal action after being served with the official eviction notice. She planned what I can only characterize as a deliberate attempt to demolish everything our family had worked so hard to create 3 days prior. On what would be her last night at our parents' house, she gained access to Dad's retirement funds and tried to move the whole amount to an offshore account she had covertly opened. Fortunately, it was discovered in time by the bank's fraud detection system. After that failed, she started methodically destroying priceless family relics, including Dad's collection of first edition books from his teaching career, our great-grandmother's wedding china, and photo albums from the 1940s. All of them were purposefully destroyed. She even claimed to be cleaning the house of generational trauma while live-streaming portions of her outburst on social media. When she found out about the covert camera system I had lawfully built with our parents' consent to record her activities, the issue reached a breaking point. She reacted violently and instantly. Screaming that she would sooner burn the house down than allow them to win, she snatched up a kitchen knife and began slicing furniture. I was asked to disclose the extensive evidence file I had put together by the police negotiator. It included years' worth of documented incidents, including surveillance footage from the house, demonstrating her deliberate destruction of property, financial documents demonstrating systematic theft from our parents' accounts, and medical records demonstrating her meddling in Dad's medical care. Olivia was finally arrested, following a 4-hour standoff. The police's discovery that she had been using several false identities during her booking, however, was the true shock. She has reportedly been using similar strategies to con other families, posing as a distant cousin in need of assistance or a long-lost relative. Currently, the district attorney is pursuing several felonies, including identity theft, criminal threats, criminal destruction of property, and attempted financial fraud. The foundation of their argument is now the evidence I have accumulated over the years. Last thoughts. While they deal with everything, our parents are living with me in San Francisco. Just the 3 of us had our first genuine family meal in years yesterday. I keep thinking about all the signs we ignored, all the times Madison tried to tell us. Mom sobbed during dessert. We were so caught up in the idea of not losing her that we never realized we were losing ourselves, said Dad, who has now begun to recover his health now that he is no longer influenced by Olivia. During the police search, the vintage pocket watch that Olivia had stolen years prior was discovered among her belongings. I'm reminded that all realities come to light in due time as I hold it and listen to its steady tick. My dad handed it to me last night and said, "It should have been yours all along." Going forward, we're concentrating on family healing, the genuine sort, based on openness and respect for one another, rather than coercion and terror. The person who ought to have been closest to you is sometimes the most difficult to eliminate out of your life. However, we've discovered that a smaller, healthier family is preferable to a larger, toxic one. I appreciate all of your help and guidance during this trip. When things got hard, your remarks kept me going. We are especially grateful to the community's legal experts who provided advice. You are truly remarkable.